Did you hear about the teacher who was helping one of her pupils put on his boots? He asked for help and she could see why. Even with her pulling and him pushing, the little boots still didn't want to go on. By the time they got the second boot on, she had worked up a sweat. She almost cried when the little boy said, "Teacher, they're on the wrong feet." She looked, and sure enough, they were. Unfortunately, it wasn't any easier pulling the boots off than it was putting them on. She managed to keep her cool as together they worked to get the boots back on, this time on the correct feet. He then announced, "These aren't my boots." She bit her tongue rather than get right in his face and scream, "Why didn't you say so?" Like she wanted to. Once again, she struggled to help him pull the ill-fitting boots off his little feet. No sooner had they got the boots off when he said, "They're my brother's boots, but my mom made me wear them today." Now she didn't know if she should laugh or cry. But she mustered up what grace and courage she had left to wrestle the boots back onto his feet again. Helping him into his coat, she asked, "Now where are your mittens?" He said, "I stuffed them in the toes of my boots. She'll be eligible for parole in 3 years." An Irishman on a deserted island for over 10 years sees a speck on the horizon drifting his way. What emerged from the surf was a wet-suited, black-clad figure. After taking some of the scuba off, there stood a gorgeous blonde. The blonde strides up to the stunned Irishman and says to him, "Tell me, how long has it been since you've had a cigarette?" 10 years, replied the amazed Irishman. She unzipped a waterproofed pocket on the left sleeve of her wetsuit and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. He takes one, lights it, and takes a long drag. "Christ," says the man, "I'd forgotten how great a smoke can be." "And how long has it been since you've had a drop of whiskey?" asked the blonde. Gobsmacked, the castaway replied, 10 years. The blonde reaches over to her right sleeve, unzips a pocket, and hands him a flask. He has a long drink. "Magic! Truly fantastic," says the Irishman. At this point, the gorgeous blonde started to slowly unzip the long front of her wetsuit right down the middle. Smiling, she looks at the trembling man and asks, "Now, how long has it been since you played around?" With tears in his eyes, the Irishman fell to his knees and sobbed. "Sweet Jesus, don't tell me you've got golf clubs in there, too." An old lady and an old man are peering into the window of a travel agent in Manchester. A travel agent looks up from his desk and sees them looking at the glamorous destinations around the world. The agent had had a good week, and the dejected couple looking in the window gives him a rare feeling of generosity. He calls them into his shop. "I know that on your pension you could never hope to have a holiday, so I am sending you off to a fabulous resort at my expense, and I won't take no for an answer." He takes them across the office and asks his secretary to write 2 flight tickets and to book a room in a 5-star hotel. They, as you would expect, gladly accept and are off. About a month later, the little old lady comes into the agent's shop. The agent asks, "And how did you enjoy your holiday?" The old lady replies, "The flight was exciting and the room was really lovely. I've come to thank you, but one thing puzzles me. Who was that old guy I had to share the room with?" An old woman came into her doctor's office and confessed to an embarrassing problem. "I do that all the time, Dr. Johnson, but they're soundless and they have no odor. In fact, since I've been here, I did it no less than 20 times. What can I do? Here's a prescription, Mrs. Harris. Take these pills 3 times a day for 7 days and come back and see me in a week." Next week, an upset Mrs. Harris marched into Dr. Johnson's office. "Doctor, I don't know what was in those pills, but the problem is worse. I'm doing it just as much, but now it smells terrible. What do you have to say for yourself?" "Calm down, Mrs. Harris," said the doctor soothingly. "Now that we've fixed your sinuses, we'll work on your hearing." And the Ferrari F1 team fired their entire pit crew yesterday. This announcement followed Ferrari's decision to take advantage of the British government's Work for Your Dole scheme and employ some Liverpudlian youngsters. The decision to hire them was brought about by a recent documentary on how unemployed youths from Toxteth were able to remove a set of wheels in less than 3 seconds without proper equipment, whereas Ferrari's existing crew could only do it in 5 seconds with millions of pounds worth of high-tech equipment. It was thought to be an excellent, bold move by the Ferrari management team, as most races are won and lost in the pits, giving Ferrari an advantage over every other team. However, Ferrari got more than they bargained for. At the crew's first practice session, not only was the Scouse pit crew able to change all 4 wheels in under 6 seconds, but within 12 seconds they had resprayed, rebadged, and sold the car to the McLaren team for 8 cases of Stella, a bag of weed, and some photos of Lewis Hamilton's bird in the shower. An attractive young woman on a flight from Ireland asked the priest beside her, "Father, may I ask a favor?" "Of course, child. What may I do for you?" "Well, I bought my mother an expensive hairdryer for her birthday. It is unopened, but well over the customs limits, and I am afraid they will confiscate it. Is there any way you could carry it through customs for me? Hide it under your robes, perhaps?" "I would love to help you, dear, but I must warn you I will not lie. With your face, Father, no one will question you." When they got to customs, she let the priest go first. The official asked, "Father, do you have anything to declare?" "From the top of my head down to my waist, I have nothing to declare." The official thought this answer strange, so he asked, "And what do you have to declare from your waist to the floor?" "I have a marvelous instrument designed to be used on a woman, but which is to date unused." Roaring with laughter, the official said, "Go ahead, Father. Next, please." Several days ago, as I left the Bunnings in Midland to walk out to my ute and was reaching into my pocket for my car keys, I got that sick feeling when I didn't find them there. I desperately gave myself a personal pat-down. Other pockets, shirt pocket, not there. Turned around real fast and trotted back into Bunnings. I did a quick search in the seats where I had been sitting. Nothing. I asked everybody if they had seen my keys. Nope. Then it hit me I must have left them in the ute. Frantically, I headed for the parking lot outside Bunnings. My wife, Robin, has scolded me 1,000 times for leaving the keys in the ignition. My theory is the ignition is the best place not to lose them. Her theory is that the car will be stolen if I do that. As I burst through the doors of Bunnings and out into the parking lot, I came to a terrifying conclusion. Her theory was right. The parking lot was empty, no ute. I immediately called the police. I gave them my location and confessed that I had left my keys in the ute and that it had been stolen. Then I made the most difficult call of all. "Honey," I stammered. I always call her honey in times like these. "I left my keys in the ute, and it has been stolen." There was a period of silence. I thought the call had been dropped, but then I heard Robin's voice. "John," she barked, "I dropped you off at Bunnings on my way to the grocery store." Now it was my time to be silent. Embarrassed, I said, "Well, would you come and get me?" Robin retorted, "I will as soon as I convince these coppers I have not stolen your ute." A Glasgow lawyer went duck hunting in rural Aberdeenshire. He shot and dropped a bird, but it fell into a farmer's field on the other side of a fence. As the lawyer climbed over the fence, an elderly farmer drove up on his tractor and asked him what he was doing. The litigator responded, "I shot a duck and it fell in this field, and now I'm going to retrieve it." The old farmer, Peter, replied, "This is my property, and you are not coming over here." The indignant lawyer said, "I am one of the best trial lawyers in Scotland, and if you don't let me get that duck, I'll sue you and take everything you own." The old farmer smiled and said, "Apparently you don't know how we settle disputes in mint law. We settle small disagreements like this with the 3-kick rule." The lawyer asked, "What is the 3-kick rule?" The farmer replied, "Well, because the dispute occurs on my land, I get to go first. I kick you 3 times, and then you kick me 3 times, and so on, back and forth until someone gives up." The lawyer quickly thought about the proposed contest and decided that he could easily take the old codger. He agreed to abide by the local custom. The old farmer slowly climbed down from the tractor and walked up to the attorney. His first kick planted the toe of his heavy steel-toed work boot into the lawyer's groin and dropped him to his knees. His second kick to the midriff sent the lawyer's last meal gushing from his mouth. The lawyer was on all fours when the farmer's third kick to his rear end sent him face first into a fresh cow pie. Summoning every bit of his will and remaining strength, the lawyer very slowly managed to get to his feet. Wiping his face with the arm of his jacket, he said, "Okay, now it's my turn." The old farmer smiled and said, "Nah, I give up. You can have the duck." A Marine boarded a train on his way home from deployment. The train was quite crowded, and the Marine walked the entire length looking for a seat. There seemed to be one next to a well-dressed middle-aged French woman, but when he got there, he saw it was taken by the woman's poodle. The war-weary Marine asked, "Ma'am, may I have that seat?" The French woman sniffed and said to no one in particular, "Americans are so rude. My little Fifi is using that seat." The Marine walked the entire train again, but the only seat available was under that dog. "Please, ma'am, may I sit down? I'm very tired." She snorted. "Not only are you Americans rude, you are also arrogant." This time the Marine didn't say a word. He just picked up the little dog, tossed it out the train window, and sat down. The woman shrieked, "Someone must defend my honor! Put this American in his place!" An English gentleman sitting nearby spoke up. "Sir, you Americans seem to have a penchant for doing the wrong thing. You hold the fork in the wrong hand, you drive your autos on the wrong side of the road, and now, sir, you seem to have thrown the wrong female out the window." The madam opened the brothel door in Glasgow and saw a rather dignified, well-dressed, good-looking man in his late 40s or early 50s. "May I help you, sir?" she asked. "I want to see Valerie," the man replied. "Sir, Valerie is one of our most expensive ladies. Perhaps you would prefer someone else," said the madam. "No, I must see Valerie," he replied. Just then, Valerie appeared and announced to the man she charged £5,000 a visit. Without hesitation, the man pulled out £5,000 and gave it to Valerie, and they went upstairs. After an hour, the man calmly left. The next night, the man appeared again, once more demanding to see Valerie. Valerie explained that no one had ever come back 2 nights in a row as she was so expensive. There were no discounts. The price was still £5,000. Again, the man pulled out the money, gave it to Valerie, and they went upstairs. After an hour, he left. The following night, the man was there yet again. Everyone was astounded that he had come for a third consecutive night, but he paid Valerie, and they went upstairs. After their session, Valerie said to the man, "No one has ever been with me 3 nights in a row. Where are you from?" The man replied, "Edinburgh." "Really?" she said. "I have family in Edinburgh." "I know," the man said. "Your sister died and I'm her solicitor. I was instructed to deliver your £15,000 inheritance in person." The moral of the story is that 3 things in life are certain. 1. Death 2. Taxes 3. Being screwed by a lawyer. Went to the local branch of my bank this morning and had an appointment, which, to be honest, didn't go very well. Something to do with my credit score or some nonsense like that. So much for being loyal to the same bank for the past 28 years. Afterwards, I went to a convenience store next door. I was only in there for a couple of minutes and bought a bag of wine gums, which I love. When I came out of the shop, there was a traffic warden in his high-vis jacket writing a parking ticket. So I went up to him and said, No. Come on, I'm having a really bad day. You don't have to do that." He ignored me and continued writing the ticket. So I called him a pathetic job's worth. He glared at me and started writing another ticket for having a semi-bald tire on the car. So I called him stupid. He finished the second ticket, put it on the car with the first, and started writing a third ticket. He said the MOT had expired the previous day. I honestly had no idea. I kept ranting at him, shouting and swearing. The more I had a go at him, the more tickets he wrote. Must have been at least 14, I think. Might have been 15. Anyway, I decided to walk home, whistling tunelessly, wondering what my bank manager would say when he saw all the tickets on his car. An Irish priest was transferred to Texas. Father O'Malley rose from his bed one morning. It was a fine spring day in his new West Texas mission parish. He walked to the window of his bedroom to get a deep breath of the beautiful day outside. He then noticed there was a jackass lying dead in the middle of his front lawn. He promptly called the local police station. The conversation went like this. "Good morning. This is Sergeant Jones. How might I help you?" And the best of the day to yourself, this is Father O'Malley at St. Anne's Catholic Church. There's a jackass lying dead in my front lawn. And would you be so kind as to send a couple of your lads to take care of the matter? Sergeant Jones, considering himself to be quite a wit, and recognizing the foreign accent, thought he would have a little fun with the good father, and replied, "Well now, Father, it was always my impression that you people took care of the last rites." There was dead silence on the line for a long moment. Father O'Malley then replied, "Aye, 'tis certainly true, but we are also obliged to notify the next of kin first, which is the reason for my call." A priest was being honored at his retirement dinner after 25 years in the parish. A leading local politician and member of the congregation was chosen to make the presentation and give a little speech at the dinner. He was delayed, so the priest decided to say his own few words while they waited. "I got my first impression of the parish from the first confession I heard here. I thought I had been assigned to a terrible place. The very first person who entered my confessional told me he had stolen a television set and, when questioned by the police, was able to lie his way out of it. He had stolen money from his parents, embezzled from his employer, had an affair with his boss's wife, taken illegal drugs, and given VD to his sister. I was appalled, but as the days went on, I knew that my people were not all like that, and I had indeed come to a fine parish full of good and loving people." Just as the priest finished his talk, the politician arrived, full of apologies for being late. He immediately began to make the presentation and gave his talk. "I'll never forget the first day our parish priest arrived," said the politician. "In fact, I had the honor of being the first one to go to him in confession." Shawn, who was a commercial traveler many years ago, became lost on a strange road on a wild, cold, stormy night. His car broke down. He thought he was in for a terrible night staying in the car, but saw a house light in the distance. Half an hour later, soaked to the skin, he knocked on the house door. A farmer opened the door. Seeing a stranger so cold and wet, he asked him in to dry by the fire. The farmer and his wife provided true country hospitality. They showed him to a bathroom where he stripped and changed into a dressing gown so his clothes could dry by the fire. They had no phone at the house. The farming couple fed him and said he'd better spend the night on the settee. While he was eating supper with them, a lovely young woman came downstairs. The farmers introduced her as their daughter Ida. In the small hours of the morning, the traveler realized the farmer's wife was in the lounge, putting wood on the fire. "You poor man," she said. "You must be so cold. Would you like our eider down?" The traveler replied, "Oh, no thanks, I couldn't cope. She's been down twice already." John was staring sadly into his pint and sighed heavily. "What's up, John?" asked the landlord. "It's not like you to be so down in the mouth." "It's my 8-year-old son," the man replied. "Don't tell me he's in trouble for fighting in school. My lad's just the same. Forget about it. It happens to boys that age," said the landlord sympathetically. "I only wish it was that," continued John. "But it's far worse than that. He has got our gorgeous 18-year-old next-door neighbor pregnant." "Get away!" gasped the landlord. "That's impossible." "It's not," said John. "The little monkey stuck a pin in all my condoms." An attorney arrived home late after a very tough day trying to get a stay of execution for his client. His last-minute plea for clemency to the governor had failed, and he was feeling worn out and depressed. As soon as he walked through the door at home, his wife yelled, "What time of night is this to be getting home? Where have you been? Dinner is cold, and I'm not reheating it." And on and on and on. Too shattered to play his usual role in this familiar ritual, he poured himself a shot of whiskey and headed off for a long, hot soak in the bathtub, pursued by the predictable sarcastic remarks as he dragged himself up the stairs. While he was in the bath, the phone rang. The wife answered and was told that her husband's client, James Wright, had been granted a stay of execution after all. Wright would not be hanged tonight. Finally realizing what a terrible day he must have had, she decided to go upstairs and give him the good news. As she opened the bathroom door, she was greeted by the sight of her husband bent over naked, drying his legs and feet. "They're not hanging Wright tonight," she said. He whirled around and screamed, "For the love of God, woman, don't you ever stop!" Two guys grow up together, but after college, one moves to Georgia and the other to Texas. They agree to meet every 10 years in Florida to play golf. At age 32, they meet, finish their round of golf, and head for lunch. Where do you want to go? Hooters. Why Hooters? They have those servers with the big boobs, the tight shorts, and the gorgeous legs. You're on. At age 42, they meet and play golf again. Where do you want to go for lunch? Hooters. Again? Why? They have cold beer, big screen TVs, and side action on the games. Okay. At age 52, they meet and play again. So where do you want to go for lunch? Hooters. Why? The food is pretty good and there's plenty of parking. Okay. At age 62, they meet again. After a round of golf, one says, where do you want to go? Hooters. Why? Wings are half price and the food isn't too spicy. Good choice. At age 72, they meet again. Once again, after a round of golf, one says, where shall we go for lunch? Hooters. Why? They have 6 handicap parking spaces right by the door and they have senior discounts. A great choice. At age 82, they meet and play again. Where should we go for lunch? Hooters. Why? Because we've never been there before. Okay, let's give it a try. A guy was standing in a bar when a stranger walks in. After a while, they get to talking, and at about 10:30 p.m., the second guy says, oh, well, I better get home. My wife doesn't like me to stay out too late at night. The first guy replies, I'll help you out of this. Just do what I say. Go home, sneak into the bedroom, pull back the covers, get down between her legs, then lick, lick, and lick for about 20 minutes, and there will be no complaints in the morning. The guy agrees to try that and continues drinking with him for 2 more hours before heading home to give it a try. When he got home, the house was pitch black. He sneaks upstairs into the bedroom, pulled back the covers, and proceeded to lick for 20 minutes. The bed was like a swamp, so he decided to wash his face. As he walked into the bathroom, his wife was sitting on the toilet. Seeing her, he screamed, "What the hell are you doing in here?" "Quiet!" she exclaimed. "You'll wake my mother." A wise old gentleman retired and purchased a modest home near a junior high school. He spent the first few weeks of his retirement in peace and contentment. Then a new school year began. The very next afternoon, 3 young boys, full of youthful after-school enthusiasm, came down his street, beating merrily on every trash can they encountered. The crashing percussion continued day after day until finally the wise old man decided it was time to take some action. The next afternoon, he walked out to meet the young percussionists as they banged their way down the street. Stopping them, he said, "You kids are a lot of fun. I like to see you express your exuberance like that. In fact, I used to do the same thing when I was your age. Will you do me a favor? I'll give you each $1 if you'll promise to come around every day and do your thing." The kids were elated and continued to do a bang-up job on the trash cans. After a few days, the old-timer greeted the kids again, but this time he had a sad smile on his face. "This recession's really putting a big dent in my income," he told them. "From now on, I'll only be able to pay you 50 cents to beat on the cans." The noisemakers were obviously displeased, but they did accept his offer and continued their afternoon ruckus. A few days later, the wily retiree approached them again as they drummed their way down the street. "Look," he said, "I haven't received my Social Security check yet, so I'm not going to be able to give you more than 25 cents. Will that be okay?" "A lousy quarter?" the drum leader exclaimed. "If you think we're going to waste our time beating these cans around for a quarter, you're nuts. No way, mister, we quit." And the old man enjoyed peace. Dorothy and Edna, 2 old-age senior widows, are talking. Dorothy: "That nice George Johnson asked me out for a date. Oh, I know you went out with him last week, and I wanted to talk with you about him before I give him my answer." Edna: "Well, I'll tell you. What happened last week? He shows up at my apartment punctually at 7 p.m., dressed like such a gentleman in a fine suit, and he brings me such beautiful flowers. Then he takes me downstairs, and what's there but a luxury car, a limousine, uniformed chauffeur and all. Then he takes me out for dinner. A marvelous dinner. Lobster, champagne, dessert, and after-dinner drinks. Then we go see a show. Let me tell you, Dorothy, I enjoyed it so much. I could have just died from pleasure. So then we are coming back to my apartment, and he turns into an animal. Completely crazy, he tore off my expensive new dress and made love his way with me 2 times. Dorothy, goodness gracious. So you're telling me I shouldn't go out with him? Edna, no. I'm just saying wear an old dress. A farmer is sitting in the neighborhood bar getting soused. A man comes in and asks the farmer, "Hey, why are you sitting here on this beautiful day getting drunk?" Farmer, some things you just can't explain. Man, so what happened that is so horrible? Farmer, well, if you must know, today I was sitting by my cow, milking her. Just as I got the bucket about full, she took her left leg and kicked it over. Man, that's not so bad. What's the big deal? Farmer, some things you just can't explain. Man, so then what happened? Farmer, I took her left leg and tied it to the post on the left with some rope. Then I sat down and continued to milk her. Just as I got the bucket about full, she took her right leg and kicked it over. Man, again. Farmer, some things you just can't explain, man. So, what did you do then? Farmer, I took her right leg and tied it to the post on the right. Man, so then what did you do? Farmer, I sat back down and continued to milk her, and just as I got the bucket just about full, the stupid cow knocked over the bucket with her tail. Man, wow, you must have been pretty upset. Farmer, some things you just can't explain. Man, so then what did you do? Farmer, well, I didn't have any more rope, so I took off my belt and tied her tail to the rafter. At that moment, my pants fell down and my wife walked in. Twin sisters in a nursing home were turning 100 years old. The editor of the local newspaper told a photographer to get over there and take pictures of the 2 100-year-old twins. One of the twins was hard of hearing, and the other could hear quite well. Once the photographer arrived, he asked the sisters to sit on the sofa. The deaf sister said to her twin, "What did he say?" "We have to sit over here on the sofa," said the other. "Now get a little closer together," said the cameraman again. "What did he say?" "He says squeeze together a little." So they wiggled up close to each other. "Just hold on for a bit longer. I've got to focus a little," said the photographer. Yet again. "What did he say? He says he's going to focus." With a big grin, the deaf twin shouted out, "Oh, Lord Jesus, what, both of us?" Several days ago, as I left the Bunnings in Midland to walk out to my ute and was reaching into my pocket for my car keys, I got that sick feeling when I didn't find them there. I desperately gave myself a personal pat down. Other pockets, shirt pocket, not there. Turned around real fast and trotted back into Bunnings. I did a quick search in the seats where I had been sitting. Nothing. I asked everybody if they had seen my keys. Nope. Then it hit me. I must have left them in the ute. Frantically, I headed for the parking lot outside Bunnings. My wife, Robin, has scolded me 1,000 times for leaving the keys in the ignition. My theory is the ignition is the best place not to lose them. Her theory is that the car will be stolen if I do that. As I burst through the doors of Bunnings and out into the parking lot, I came to a terrifying conclusion. Her theory was right. The parking lot was empty, no ute. I immediately called the police. I gave them my location and confessed that I had left my keys in the ute and that it had been stolen. Then I made the most difficult call of all. "Honey," I stammered. "I always call her honey in times like these. I left my keys in the ute and it has been stolen." There was a period of silence. I thought the call had been dropped, but then I heard Robin's voice. "John!" she barked. "I dropped you off at Bunnings on my way to the grocery store." Now it was my time to be silent. Embarrassed, I said, "Well, would you come and get me?" Robin retorted, "I will, as soon as I convince these coppers I have not stolen your ute." A cowboy rides his horse into a small town. His throat is parched, so he ties his horse to a pole next to a bar and goes in for a drink. He comes out a few minutes later, and someone has already stolen his horse. The people of the town are looking to see his reaction. They aren't even discreet about it. He looks around at everyone and says loud and clear, I will walk back into the bar to get myself another drink, and if I don't see my horse right in front of the bar, I will have to do what I did in Texas a year ago after someone stole my horse. And trust me, I didn't like what I had to do in Texas a year ago." After his confident speech, the man walked back into the bar. The townsfolk looked at each other in fear and got the horse back. The cowboy finished his second drink and walked out of the bar, saddled the horse, but just before he left, the bartender walked up to him and asked, "Hey, cowboy, we know that we got you your horse back, but do you mind telling us what you had to do a year ago in Texas?" The cowboy looked at him with an iron gaze and responded, "I had to walk home."